SRIC is the standing committee of CALEA that receives and acts upon requests for changes to the wording and language of the standards. The committee will receive and review and recommend to the full commission changes to standards, new standards, the adoption of new standards, or the deletion of standards, or any changes to any of the wording in the manuals with the I lost the name, but what's the back word where you? No, the agenda. Excuse me just 1 minute. The glossary terms is what I was thinking. I'm sorry. The committee will review and recommend to the commission any changes to the glossary terms, wording in the standards, or anything regarding the programs within the CALEA assessment model. Here's how it works. Basically, the SRIC meets in executive session on Thursday morning and reviews the work before it at that time. Then on the public meeting on Friday morning, we report out the actions taken by the committee and share with you the proposed actions that will be forwarded to the full commission. Those motions are made to the full commission at the full business meeting on Friday afternoon. It is also at this meeting where we provide an open mic session, and we're in the process of locating that mic for you now, but should we not have that worked out in time, we will make that available to anyone who has any comments. And we certainly do encourage your comments or questions, anything regarding the workings and the activities of the SRIC group. Typically then, any actions proposed to the full commission will be posted on the public website for client comment. Today, you'll hear references to another group, and that is the Standards Review Focus Group. This is a group of commissioners and CALEA staff that has been pulled together to do a complete review of all of the CALEA standards. They are now working on the law enforcement standards, but you'll hear reference to that in that the committee, this committee yesterday had decided to table some of the issues before us and refer them instead to that group for their review and their inclusion in their work. Also wanted to mention that the meeting today is being videotaped, and that is why these draperies are closed. If we could open them, you'd have a much better view than you have right now, but you'll have to put up with us for a little bit. Also, I wanted to mention that what is projected on the screen here today, I know many of you attempt to take notes or even take a photograph of that, and you're certainly welcome to do that, but what will be on the screen here will be available on Power DMS in about 2 weeks, so just so you're aware of that option also. I believe we're ready to go with that, and we are assisted this morning by Accreditation Manager Karen Shepard and Regional Program Manager Randy Scott. So with that, Karen, if you would, please call the roll.
Certainly, my pleasure. Commissioner Anthony?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Fordner?
Here.
Commissioner Farrow?
Here.
Commissioner Kittredge?
Here.
Commissioner Knight?
Here.
Commissioner Middleton? Commissioner Purcell?
Here.
Commissioner Ryder-Dove? Here. Commissioner Womack? Here. Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Karen. The first item of business before the committee is the review and approval of the minutes from the March 2015 Reno, Nevada meeting. Everyone should have received a copy of that. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and minutes stand approved. Thank you. The first item before, or the next item before the committee is the proposed revision to Law Enforcement Standard 22.2.8 relating to military deployment. Commissioner Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the March meeting in Reno, Nevada, the Standards Review and Interpretation Committee instructed staff to post the proposal that you see to my left for revisions and for client feedback. Comments were due to come back to CALEA by May 22nd of 2015. Regards Standard 22.2.8, long-term military deployment and reintegration. Requires the agency to have a written directive establishing a plan for personnel with military activations at the current time exceeding 181 days for pre-deployment, deployment, and post-deployment. Requires several things for the agencies to do to be compliant. The feedback that came back to PAX and to email suggested that the date be revised to 180 days to be compliant and would be consistent with federal law, federal standards. So the committee met yesterday to change it from 181 days to 180 days for long-term military deployment. That's the only change that we made from the commentary that went out. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a revision to Law Enforcement Standard 22.2.8 regarding to military deployment and send it to the full commission for adoption.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item was the proposed revision to Law Enforcement Standards 33.5.4, Campus Security Standard 18.5.4, Communications Standard 5.2.13, and Training Academy Standard 4.7.5, all relating to accreditation manager training. After review and discussion at the SRIC meeting yesterday, the committee decided to table this issue and take no action at this time, but instead to forward it to the Standards Chapter Review Focus Group, which is chaired, by the way, by Commissioner Womack, for their consideration and inclusion in their work. And I would make that motion at this time. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the proposed revision to Communications Standard 1.2.2 relating to expectations of privacy. Commissioner Ryder-Dove.
This is a minor change to 1.2.2. It takes out the word laws and report records into bullet A. This has been to the field. Make a motion to approve a revision to Communication Standard 1.2.2 relating to expectations of privacy and send it to the full commission for adoption. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item before the committee is the proposed revision to Campus Security Standard 21.3.7 relating to body-worn cameras. Commissioner Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Realizing that this particular standard that's on the screen was adopted previously for the Law Enforcement Standards Manual. In yesterday's discussion, we knew that it should have been included in the Campus Security Manual as well, so we're making a motion this morning for a revision to Campus Security Standard 21.3.7 related to body-worn cameras, send it to the full commission for adoption.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item before the committee is the proposed revision to Campus Security Standard 34.1.5 relating to property and evidence audits. Commissioner Kittredge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The committee has proposed amendments to Standard 34.1.5 related to property and evidence inventories and audits within the campus security platform. Similar to what you heard from Commissioner Purcell, these changes also seek to merely accomplish the compatibility goal of having standards mirror each other across multiple platforms.
We have a motion for approval. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner. The next item is discussion on communications 3.4.7 relating to annual evaluations of the personnel early warning system. After deliberation yesterday on this issue, the committee decided to table any further action at this time and instead to send it to the chapter standards focus review group for their consideration, and I make that motion at this time. Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is discussion on communications standard 4.3.8 relating to psychological examinations. Commissioner Ryder-Dove.
Changes to make, thank you. This change is to make this standard mandatory for all size within the communications program, and it is mandatory in all of the other CALEA programs. Motion to accept draft language for communication standard 4.3.8 relating to psychological examinations and send it to the field for comment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item was discussion on law enforcement standard 82.16 and communications standard 6.85 relating to security systems. Again, following discussion, the SRIC committee yesterday decided to table any further action and instead to send this to the chapter standards focus group for their consideration, and I so move. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a discussion on communication standard 6.8.7 relating to password construction. Commissioner Dove.
This is a change in wording in 6.8.7 regarding computer systems and passwords. I would make a motion to accept draft language for communication standard 6.8.7 relating to password construction and send it to the field for comment.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item was a discussion on a request for the interpretation by the Commission on the applicability of Chapter 3, specifically as it relates to school resource officers. The issue, or the issue before the Commission was whether or not that chapter applied in those situations where services were provided to the school districts, but there was no financial reimbursement for those services. Following that discussion, it was the determination of the committee that it in fact does apply. Chapter 3 still is applicable in that situation, and the CALEA staff will be preparing a letter to that effect and forwarding it to the, I believe it was a PAC, CALEA PAC organization that had brought forward that question. So that will be taken care of with a letter forthcoming from CALEA. The next item was discussion on request from a citizen for drug testing and communications. This was a somewhat convoluted type of question that came from a public citizen, and I guess suffice it to say that after reviewing what was submitted, the committee decided that there would be no action taken on that, and I make that motion at this time. You have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, discussion on proposed revision to Law Enforcement Standard 42.2.4 relating to shift briefings. This again, after review by the committee, was decided it could be best handled and more appropriately handled by the chapter standards focus group. And the motion here this morning is to send that particular issue to that group for consideration and incorporation into their efforts, and I so move. Have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is discussion on proposed revisions to Communications Standard 3.2.5 relating to medical examinations. Commissioner Ryder-Dove.
3.2.5 in communications and 4.3.7 are related, and we are moving towards deleting one of the standards and adding additional language. With that in mind, with 3.2.5, I motion to table action on it until next conference.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the related, other half of that, if you will, of a discussion on proposed revision to Communications Standard 4.3.7 relating to medical exams, which was just addressed. Commissioner Dove, any further on that?
This is the revision that we'll be making a motion to send out. Adds hearing and vision into the communications medical examination and removes the general health of candidate. With that in mind, I would motion to accept draft language for communication standards 4.3.7 and send it to the field for comment.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is discussion on proposed revision to Communication Standard 6.4.6 relating to encoding communications. Again, Commissioner Ryder-Dove.
This is a request from a client agency regarding encoding of communications. After discussion, we will be not making any changes at this point, but I will make a motion to take no action and send it back to the APCO CALEA committee for additional work.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That concluded the items brought before the committee yesterday. We will be making the appropriate motions this afternoon at the full business meeting to the full commission. Again, this is the opportunity we provide for all of you to make any comments or suggestions or questions you might have regarding the work of the SRIC committee. So we do have a microphone set up here now, so anyone who would like to address the committee, please feel free to come forward. Anyone at all? Well, if no other further business to come before the committee, we want to thank you all for coming this morning. Appreciate you being here, and we will stand adjourned. Thank you.